everyone, I am Kara, aka Clefairy Creations, and today we have kind of a tutorial, but also a video of like how I just created a situation that I didn't mean to create. Namely, working with really old and really cheap materials and kind of combining them with my super nice and professional grade materials. So we're taking this disgusting bag of Art Loft paints and using my nice professional grade gallery oil pastels. Let's see how it works out. I mean, I know how it works out, but let's figure it out. For today's materials, you will need mixed media paper or watercolor paper, watercolors, oil pastels, brushes, and then anything you use to normally paint with, like water, a palette, a rag, whatever you need. Also, just a disclaimer that I am not saying Art Loft paints are bad. If you use them and you like them, that's amazing. These are probably like 10 years old, and so I think that's probably why I had a lot of issues with them. But yeah, not to rag on Art Loft, these were just really old materials, and I didn't realize that until I started using them. I did go ahead and use masking tape just to like put down my surface so that it wasn't going to like go anywhere when I was painting or using my oil pastels. Luckily, some of them, I guess, decided to open for me, and so I got those on my palette. And then I just started to lay down a layer of water. I really like working with water already put on the paper, especially if I'm trying to use watercolors. So that is what I'm doing here. And I'm just using a wash brush. This is actually my favorite brush. And little thing that definitely got to me a little bit is that these paints, while I was applying them to the paper, they just stuck onto my brush. They didn't really like going onto the paper. So my brush is like, I ran it under soap and water for like 5 minutes and it is stained this green color now. So yeah, that was kind of not great, but I do get some of the green color onto the paper, as you can see. At this point, I do change brushes because I'm like, well, okay, I don't want to ruin this brush anymore because it's my favorite brush. So I'm going to my next one. So this next layer of green that I'm putting down is actually their acrylic paint. So I ended up pouring like a couple of watercolor, a couple of acrylic, and this one was Hooker green. So yeah, but it went on a little bit better than their watercolor did. And again, this is my base layer that I'm putting down. I will be going over this with oil pastels, but yeah, this is my base layer and we're working with it. I was trying to spread a little bit of the color with just adding more water, like more and more water. And it did work a little bit. I was able to form it into kind of like the areas of green that I wanted it to be. So overall, I did get it onto the paper. It did a little bit crush me inside, but it wasn't too bad. You know, you work with what you have, and this is what I had in the moment. So using that same brush, I put down a blue for the sky. The blue actually immediately seemed to be better. I believe I just went full acrylic at this point. I didn't even try to use the watercolors because they didn't seem like they wanted to be working. The best way that I could describe this paint that I'm using is sticky, which I don't think is an adjective that you should be using in order to describe your paints. But with the blue, I just kept it a little bit, I mean, it looks pretty dark, but I promise you it was a lot lighter than what it looked like. So I'm just trying to spread it to the best of my abilities with my brush. And I do go back again and just try to get the water. I'm really trying to push it with my brush so that I don't have to layer on any more than I have to. And I leave some areas of white, which I'm just gonna use my oil pastels to go back with and color in. So a little tip about me, I don't really wait for my paints to dry in between my layers very well. So I use this lovely rag that I haven't washed in years that just is used for paints, and it has paints all over it, so it does its job. But yeah, I just dabbed the paint that was on the paper with that rag and opened up my oil pastels to get started layering onto this lovely blue and green piece we have so far. So again, this is supposed to be a flower field. So my initial thing that I'm going to be working on is the slower green part. And I'm gonna just start putting in like the grasses and stems and start defining kind of the features of the area. I just went in with a darker green because I wanted to see how it was going to layer onto these paints. Overall, the oil pastels went onto these paints phenomenally. I've had paints before, specifically acrylics, where it's been very hard for the oil pastels to go onto there, just because I added the layers a bit too thick. But since I kept these layers really thin, it's going on very well, and I was very happy with it. I also go in with just a bunch of different colors, like my pale yellow here. I really like pale yellow, especially when making flowers. I think it adds a good contrast to the green. So you'll see that I'll go in with some pale yellow, some browns, some salmon pinks, just to give it a little bit more like realistic colors to the area. Just to kind of give a mid-ground to this piece, I do go in and I add some horizontal lines to the field behind this foreground of like leaves and grasses and flowers. Yeah, so I just go and I do it horizontally, because if you did it vertically, it's too much detail for me. I like to not add in a lot of that detail into my mid and background and horizon and stuff. So yeah, I kept it simple like this. And again, I do add in those extra colors to give some definition, like maybe there's some dirt over there, or maybe there's little flowers behind our foreground flowers. So I'm thinking about this in terms of like what colors would be in this field right now. I actually like the extra dark greens that are on my horizon. They remind me a little bit of some groups of trees, and again, that was completely unintentional. That's just where the paint actually was a little bit more heavy for me when I put down the paint. So I kept it like that because I just liked the way it looked. And now I am finally starting on those flowers. So I'm keeping these really abstract. I'm not making these super detailed. I'm not like counting my petals this time. This is truly abstract, and I really like doing pieces like this sometimes because it's all about the color and laying it on the paper. I am thinking of these flowers as more like tulip-like, so that's why I'm kind of doing this like half circle cup shape to them. And then I do go back, and in that mid-ground I start adding the same colors that I used to create these foreground tulips, and I'm putting them in the background to give that effect that the flowers are extending all the way through the field. Additionally, just to get a little technical, since this is technically a tutorial and I haven't just been rambling on about how bad my paints were, I am using a technique here called stippling, which is where you just are dotting the area to give it some definition or structure. In this case, it's giving the effect that the flowers are extending back into that horizon. But yeah, you can use it for a lot of things. A lot of the times when I'm making flowers, I'll use it on the stem just to give it like a little bit of texture. And then I go back and I add just an extra like layer of those grasses and leaves to my tulips. Again, not getting super detailed with it, just leaving it kind of abstract with bold lines, but not super specific. So once you are done with your flower field and you're happy with all the colors and placements of everything, the last part is to go in and detail your sky. You could have totally left it how I had it, where it was just painted, but I like to add just like a little bit of texture and movement to my sky. So I go in with a light gray as well as a lighter blue, and I'm just kind of creating this circular motion to the sky, kind of like when you're making clouds. you'll see that I do go back in with my light gray and white and smooth this out a little bit. That's just because I don't like the super harsh circular motion. While I still want to add texture, I don't want it to look, you know, weird. So super artistic terms there, I know. But yeah, that's what I'm doing to create just some texture to my sky. And then I go in with some darker blues and I start to just make some horizontal lines, really just skimming my oil pastel onto the paper. I'm not trying to be super specific about it. I'm just moving my hand horizontally, and wherever that oil pastel touches, that's where the line's going to be created. And in those white areas that I left behind with painting, I'm going in with a pale yellow just to give the effect that there is sun there and it's trying to peek through those clouds, but it's having a little bit of trouble. So only in those bare spots can you really see the sun. I did decide to go back in and blend a little bit of those blue dark lines that I had. I didn't want to blend all of them, but some of them were a bit harsh, so I wanted to soften that feel. And I think it turned out overall really well. And this is the end to the piece. So I have a nice cathartic peeling of the tape to reveal that lovely border. Again, this is masking tape, so it doesn't tear the paper. I've never had it tear the paper, but I'm also using probably like 120 pound paper, so it's fairly thick, so it's not gonna break super easily here. But here's the last piece of tape, and voila! There is our tulip flower field using all kinds of things. Thank you guys so much for being here, being a part of this journey. I did have fun creating this, even though I initially had no idea how it was going to turn out. But yeah, I know this was less of a tutorial and more of just kind of me rambling on about this painting, but I really appreciate you guys being here. Like, comment, subscribe, all of that good stuff, and I will see you guys next Friday. Happy creating, everyone!